You have direct access to Councilwoman Gabbard, so you can ask a question or share a viewpoint.
Straz Center's Opera Tampa presents Verdi's Macbeth at Straz Center, featuring live musical performance by the Florida Orchestra, Friday, April 24th and Sunday, April 26th. Tickets available at operatampa.org.
Public safety, affordability, and the future of the gas plant neighbourhood. These are some of the issues front and centre for St. Pete mayoral hopeful Brandy Gabbard. Gabbard has nearly 10 years' experience on the City Council. Now she's vying for the top job. I'm Matthew Petty, and coming up on Florida Matters Live and Local, I'll sit down with Gabbard and talk about her vision for St. Pete. And you can call in. What questions do you have for this mayoral candidate? We're at 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Also this hour, a special session on redistricting is looming. How will Florida redraw its maps, and what does it mean for you the next time you go to vote? And a near miss involving a school bus and a train in Sumter County recently. Just how safe are school buses? All this and your calls and emails coming up after these headlines.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. President Trump says the United States and Iran could soon resume peace talks this week. Mediators are moving to extend a 2-week ceasefire between the two countries, which expires next Tuesday. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports from Tel Aviv.
President Trump told the New York Post that peace talks could be happening over the next 2 days with Iran. In Pakistan, we'll have to see about that. The top Pakistani mediators are actually scheduled to be traveling abroad for the next scheduled date in several days. But UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says his indication is that it is highly probable the talks will restart.
That's NPR's Daniel Estrin reporting. Vice President J.D. Vance spoke at the University of Georgia last night about efforts to end the war in Iran. His visit came nearly a week after talks between the two sides broke down in Islamabad. Sarah Callis with Georgia Public Broadcasting reports Vance talked to students at an event hosted by Turning Point USA.
Vance told a crowd of hundreds to continue supporting the Trump administration even if they disagree with the war in Iran. University of Georgia student Drake Smith attended the event. He describes himself as a moderate Republican and voted for President Trump, but says the Iran war is pushing him away.
I don't know why we need to go send our troops to die in a war that it's pointless, honestly, because our America should be first in our ideals, and we are not together as a country right now.
For NPR News, I'm Sarah Callis in Athens, Georgia.
The House is preparing to vote on legislation to extend the government's authority to conduct surveillance on foreign nationals overseas without a warrant. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act includes a provision that's set to expire next Monday. Civil liberties groups oppose renewing the measure. President Trump supports it. It's tax day, and many Americans are getting larger refunds this year, but in many cases, those refunds are getting eaten up by higher gas prices. NPR's Stephen Bisaha reports the average gallon of regular gas in the U.S. now costs $4.11.
So far this year, the average tax refund is about $350 higher than last year, thanks to the tax changes in Republicans' One Big Beautiful Bill Act from last year. Retiree Bob Jones in Birmingham, Alabama, says he's happy with his refund, but he plans on keeping it all in savings.
You need the savings simply for gas right now. Gas is through the roof, as you know.
The Bank of America Institute says consumer spending has remained steady, while tax refunds cover the extra price at the pump. But if gas prices, tariffs, and inflation continue to go up, they could erode all the benefits Americans receive from the tax changes. Stephen Bisaha, NPR News.
Stocks are trading mixed on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow was down 241 points. The Nasdaq up 244. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive, with small business insurance for protecting a variety of business types with multiple coverage options, designed to fit business owners' needs. More about small business insurance is at progressivecommercial.com.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. The Sarasota School District is facing a financial crunch and cutting more than 130 teacher jobs. As WUSF's Carrie Sheridan reports, those who stay may see their paychecks shrink.
The district says enrollment is declining due to lower birth rates and increased use of state-funded vouchers for private and homeschool. Julie Farnsworth teaches graphic design at Sarasota High. She was told her job ends June 30th and says it's heartbreaking.
My seniors are like, I wouldn't be here, Miss Farnsworth, if it wasn't for you. I'm told that all the time.
She says she taught 120 students every day, and her administrator doesn't know who will take her place next year. Meanwhile, a top-tier health plan that used to be free for teachers will soon cost $200 a month. Teachers who work in low-income schools, known as Title I, used to get $3,000 extra per year. Now they'll get less than half that. Carrie Sheridan, WUSF 89.7 News.
ESPN basketball announcer Dick Vitale is facing another battle with cancer. The 86-year-old Lakewood Ranch resident says biopsy results confirmed a diagnosis of melanoma in his lung and liver cavity. He says he's going to be starting immunotherapy soon. It's Vitale's fifth battle with cancer. He took 2 years off work the last time before coming back shortly before the NCAA men's basketball tourney last year. Vitale has raised more than $105 million for pediatric cancer research. His 21st gala fundraiser is set for May 1st at the Ritz-Carlton in Sarasota. The Country Thunder Music Festival will not be held on St. Pete Beach as planned. Instead, it's moving to Clearwater next month. Environmentalists raised concerns with the festival starting a week after sea turtle nesting season opens. The location now being moved to Coachman Park along Clearwater Harbor. Anybody who has already bought tickets can get a refund if they so choose. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
Florida passes laws that impact your job, your vote, even your weekend. Your Florida gives you the facts on what's happening, why it matters, and how you can speak up. Follow the story and join the conversation, because this is your state too.
WUSF programs are powered by support from community organizations like Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. Learn how your organization can support WUSF by calling Scott Kaufman at 800-741-9090.
This is Florida Matters Live and Local, sponsored by Badawi Law, and we're broadcasting from the Drs. Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WUSF in Tampa. I'm Matthew Petty. Brandy Gabbard represents District 2 on the St. Petersburg City Council. She's been on the council for nearly a decade, and she's worked as a real estate broker for about as long as she's lived in St. Pete. Gabbard believes in sustainable development and climate-resilient city planning, and some of her goals, if elected mayor, include creating a more affordable city and stronger and smarter infrastructure. Now, earlier this year, Gabbard introduced a resolution to pause the development of the gas plant district, calling for sound planning and principles and meaningful community participation. She's been an outspoken critic of Mayor Ken Welch's strategy for redeveloping the 86-acre site, which was raised decades ago to make way for Tropicana Field. And as of now, the vote on plans have been pushed to next summer. Now, if you've got a question for Councilwoman Gabbard, what important issues would you like her to focus on if elected Mayor of St. Pete? You can join the conversation by calling 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email. We're at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Councilwoman Gabbard, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matthew. It's great to be here with you today.
All right, so what's your elevator pitch? Why are you running for mayor?
Well, I'm running for mayor because I believe that our city is at a crossroads. We have vulnerabilities that we have yet to address, and we have great opportunity in front of us. And we need a mayor who has a vision for our city that is going to protect everyday people, that is going to keep our city viable and sustainable for generations to come, and keep it livable and affordable for the people who are here today.
That's kind of quite a lot you've got going on there. So, and one other thing you've called for is a more transparent and accountable City Hall. How would City Hall be different under your leadership?
Well, I certainly have always led with the residents top of mind, and I believe that our government needs to be accessible to the people that we serve. We need to be transparent in our actions, and that is exactly the kind of leadership that I plan on bringing. Working together with people to create the best policy that affects their lives, and that is the leader that I am committed to being.
Do you feel like there is a lack of accessibility right now?
Absolutely.
Why?
Well, I just believe that it's easy as city government for us to work in silos, and I think we do better work whenever we open up that conversation to the residents that we serve, and I don't see that happening today, but I look forward to a brighter future ahead.
Well, so let's talk about your platform. Two of the things you want to address are public safety and housing. Now, in January, St. Pete Police Chief reported the lowest number of homicides in 60 years, also lower youth crime rates. So that sounds like a good thing. Is there more that they could be doing, though, to make things safer?
Absolutely. And, we're certainly trending in a better direction. But when you speak to people within our communities, they are certainly asking for the government to continue to be more responsive, to continue to make sure that we're keeping our communities safer. And it doesn't just always look like policing either. I am an advocate for our Complete Streets plan, and that would help to make it more friendly for pedestrians and bicyclists and all road users. And that is also a public safety issue.
What about potholes?
Oh, well, obviously, potholes are certainly something that we have to continue to work on, making sure that our roadways are clear, that they are easy to navigate, and that all road users can be safe when they are out on our streets.
Now, on the affordable housing front, St. Pete is building affordable housing. The Skyway Marina District opened some affordable units in January. Work underway also on the Fairfield Avenue apartments.
Yes.
Is the city doing enough?
So I'm very proud to say that in my time on City Council, myself and my City Council colleagues have done incredible work in the affordable housing space. This is an issue that I came to City Hall to champion, and the Fairfield apartments are a great example of that. That's legislation that I passed back in 2021 to take advantage of some state issues that we were the first in the state to actually do. And because of that, that project is moving forward. But we need to do more. We need to be bolder, and we need to make sure that we are really looking to incentivize affordable housing across all demographics, specifically our senior housing. So yes, we have a long way to go, and the work has just begun.
How do you pay for that? If you want to put in more affordable housing, like what's your plan for paying for it?
Yeah, there's certainly some financial limitations that we have to work within, but we have many different coffers of which we can pull from to be able to produce and incentivize affordable housing. One of the benefits of having 9 years on City Council is that City Council approves the budget, and we are very instrumental in creating the budget. And I know the budget very, very well, and will be able to work with our team to make sure that every single dollar and every single resource is going to the needs that affect the people the most.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Brandy Gabbard. She's running for Mayor of St. Pete. She's currently representing District 2 on the St. Pete City Council. If you've got questions for Brandy Gabbard, things you want to talk about in terms of what the city could be doing better or her platform, give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also send us a message. Email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. You can also leave a message on our YouTube stream as well. So what about accessory dwelling units? Because those have been a little bit controversial in some municipalities. Do you support them?
Absolutely. From day one, when I first came onto City Council, there was some traction being made on accessory dwelling units, and I was one of the council members who pushed that forward. We're very proud that in the city of St. Petersburg, we have a very aggressive goal and some very creative zoning around our accessory dwelling units, and I was instrumental in the passage of that. Continue to support that.
Are you hearing from anyone who says we don't want these? This is like, going to degrade our neighborhood?
We always hear from individuals who have concerns about more affordable and workforce housing in our community. But I believe that political will at the end of the day is for us as a city to move forward to make sure that our workforce has a place where they can enjoy our city as well. And it's very important that we continue to listen to those concerns, but move ahead in a way that we know is best for the most residents of our city.
So affordability, is that what you're hearing most from residents, both in your job right now and also as you kind of get on the campaign trail?
Absolutely. Affordability and livability within our city. The ability to be able to affordably maintain a home. Cost burden for our residents continues to rise. And that is not just housing, that's also transportation. And, we have to make sure that in addition to increasing housing opportunities, that we're also looking at bringing better paying jobs and jobs that will pay higher wages to really help people be able to afford the housing that is available.
We're talking with St. Pete City Council member Brandy Gabbard. She's running for Mayor of St. Pete. If you've got questions for Gabbard, you can call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So one of the biggest opportunities, of course, in St. Pete right now is and I guess it's been a point of contention for some time too, is the 86-acre gas plant neighborhood, the side of Tropicana Field. They're still playing baseball there for a bit, but there are plans to redevelop it. Now, you were successful in getting redevelopment plans for the gas plant district paused until next summer. Why was that important?
So, again, listening to the residents that we serve, there is a large constituency that wants to make sure that this opportunity that we have in front of us, that we are being the best stewards of that land that we can possibly be. Everything changed after the hurricanes of 2024 for our city, and no one who lives in our city is looking at the city the same way, and the government should not be looking at it the same either. We should be looking at this land as an opportunity. We should be doing the comprehensive work to inform us of what the right path forward is. Should we even be selling all of this land?
So let me just stop you there for a moment, because when you listen to Mayor Ken Welch, he says, well, that work's been done. Let's just get on with it.
Yeah.
You don't think that's right?
There has been a lot of work done, and I've lived through a lot of that work, right? But what I believe today matters the most is that we can take the work that has been done, but we can also incorporate our current community's concerns, and we can look at a comprehensive plan that really sets forward a path for our city to redevelop this land in the most responsible way possible.
What do you think should happen there?
Well, I think that right now, like I said, we've needed to pause, and we need to really look and see if even selling all of this land to one master plan developer is the best path forward. But I'm not convinced that it is.
Yeah, but what, I mean, like, do you have an idea of what you would like to see there?
Yeah, I mean, we are going to need to work on assets and city resources that we will need as our city continues to grow. A few examples that I can give you is fire stations, senior housing, as I mentioned earlier, and we have a crumbling senior center now that needs revitalization and redevelopment. Yep. What if there was a vision to move that to that site and have senior housing on top so we had full wraparound services for our senior community? An economic development engine, a facility where economic vitality, especially for the descendants of the gas plant, could really come in and be an incubator to help them build small business. And then we cannot forget that we have our African-American Woodson Museum that needs to be rebuilt. And maybe that should be something that the city continues to maintain ownership over that land. We also could use an intermodal center to be able to connect all of our transit options together in our downtown core. The list goes on, Matthew.
Right.
And those are not questions we've answered.
So you're saying that's why you need to have this pause and do more planning.
Absolutely.
We're going to hear more from Councilwoman Gabbard coming up after the break. If you've got questions for her about her plans for the city, if she's elected mayor, the phone lines are open, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Florida Matters Live and Local continues in a moment. Stay with us.
Residents across the greater Tampa Bay region are adapting their homes to flooding.
We're actually doing tile that looks like wood. This way when it floods, we don't need to touch it. We'll still have to do it with the drywall.
I'm Jessica Mazzaros, climate reporter for WUSF. From emergency info to storm recovery, we've got you covered every hurricane season and beyond.
Support for WUSF comes from listeners like you and from Seitenbacher with a new web shop, Healthy muesli, cold-pressed oils, and vegetable broth mix delivered to your door from right here in Tampa Bay. Details at Seitenbacher.com. Seitenbacher. Seitenbacher.
Turn your old car into powerful local journalism and programming you love on WUSF. When you donate it, we'll handle the pickup for free, and you'll get a tax deduction. And best of all, you'll fuel the news coverage and local shows that keep our community informed and connected. Call 866-WUSF-CAR or visit WUSF.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty, and we're sitting down with City Council member Brandy Gabbard. She is running for Mayor of St. Pete. She wants to see a more affordable city, better infrastructure, a well-thought-out plan to redevelop the gas plant district. If you've got a question for Brandy Gabbard, give us a call, 813-755-6562, 813-755-6562. Let's go to the phones. We've got Roger calling in. Roger, you are on the air.
Thanks so much for taking the call. Brandy, I have a question you had mentioned earlier about affordability, and I think the universal affordability crisis for all Floridians is the electric bill. And how do you stand on Tampa and other municipalities running their own electricity utility? And what are the pros and cons? What are the benefits? I know we've heard the cons from a lobbying group, and I'd like to know what you have to say about this.
Thanks for your call, Roger. What about that?
Well, thank you, Roger, for the question. And I have been very vocal about my direction that I want our city to do a feasibility study on the potential for municipal electric. I have voted in favor of that, and I look forward to the city bringing those results of the feasibility study back to us. And I am committed to exploring this option along with other options such as co-op electric. I think that there are a lot of opportunities for us to be able to save for our residents and making sure that we are doing the due diligence to ensure that we have the best electric power utility possible and that we have it as affordably as possible.
All right. We've got Ken calling in from St. Pete. Ken, you're on the air. Oh, we lost Ken. Okay, never mind. If you got questions for us, you can give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. I just want to go back to the kind of situation that unfolded over the last few years with the Rays in Tropicana Field. Though, do you think the Rays should have stayed in St. Pete? Like, would you have liked to keep the team there?
Absolutely. I supported the Rays-Hines development deal, and I believe that, that the Rays being in our city is certainly an economic driver, and it was important to try to protect that and create a redevelopment anchored around that. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, they had other ideas. And so at this point, I am looking at this 86 acres as opportunity for our city to move forward in a much stronger and bolder way. And so at the end of the day, it's their loss.
Now, I want to ask, too, about another big story for St. Pete in the last few years, and that is the kind of aftermath of 2024 hurricane season. We've had three big storms pummel the city. The city's sewer system failed. Since then, St. Pete has pumped about $70 million into upgrading the system. Is that enough?
Absolutely not. I represent a district that lies completely within the coastal high hazard. Every single neighborhood that I represent was affected by either hurricanes Idalia, Helene, or Milton. And I can tell you, I know firsthand, including the damage I sustained to my own home, what residents are going through every single day.
How's your home now?
It's all repaired after a year of work. And, we have a $700 million stormwater plan that we do not have the funding to be able to actually implement. We have got to find creative ways to fund these projects, and we have to do it sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. Resiliency is at the top of my platform because I believe in a coastal community. Resiliency has to be interwoven in everything that we do. And we will continue to fight to be a viable and sustainable city as long as we can in the face of the extreme weather that we're seeing.
Let's go to the phones again. We've got Kyle calling in from St. Pete. Kyle, you're on the air.
Hey, how are you today?
Good.
I got a question regarding City of St. Petersburg utilities, water sanitation. lot of issues following the hurricanes with high water bills, a lot of issues with sanitation pickups outside of just storm debris stuff, just regular pickups and recycling. Any comment on plans for changes in these departments?
Thanks for your question, Kyle. So I feel like we've kind of broached the subject a little bit here, Brandy, talking about the sewer system. But what about the cleanup after the storm? Could
Absolutely.
you do more to speed that process up?
Well, our city team that was in charge of the debris cleanup, they did that in record time. 90 days, we had the debris. And do we want to do it sooner? Absolutely, of course. We have to work with our state and our county partners to be able to do that as quickly as possible after a storm. And I am committed to continuing that work, to continue to try to find ways to do that. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as the water bills and the metering, I have been a champion at City Hall for us to bring in new technologies so that we can have advanced metering through better technology, better automated meters. And we are continuing to look at that at City Council. And I believe from the research that I have done that that will help to control those water bills and bring down those rates, ultimately being a savings to our utility payers.
I want to ask about construction going on in St. Pete. Now, we talked on this show recently about St. Pete's kind of construction boom, a lot of high-rise apartments going up, pretty high price tags too. Some listeners told us they think the city feels increasingly unfamiliar and they feel like they're getting priced out. So how do you strike a balance between growth and affordability?
Absolutely. Market rate redevelopment is going to happen. And we as the city, it's our responsibility to continue back to our conversation on affordable housing and building more affordable housing and having more units available and helping people be able to maintain the homes that they currently have. We have great programs currently that help residents to be able to do repairs, to keep their homes, because sometimes the most affordable housing is housing that people already have. But we have a long way to go to be able to continue to keep up with that demand. And so, change is inevitable, but it's how our leadership addresses that change. And if they keep an eye on the things that are most important to the people who we serve today.
And one of those important things in St. Pete for folks is the art scene, right? Like the murals, the artist community here. A lot of folks there also feel like they're maybe being priced out.
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of help harness that growth to support the art scene?
Yeah, I've been speaking with the development community, and there is a group that is comprised of the development community and the artist community who are coming together and trying to tackle exactly this issue. I think that there's ways that we can incentivize development to be able to have not only affordable gallery spaces and work spaces for our artists, but also live spaces.
Sure.
And that is certainly a collaboration that I'm committed to continuing to work on. Once again, it goes right back to partnerships. And everything that we do, we have to bring the affected individuals in, but also the partners who can help us to solve those challenges.
Some big challenges to solve indeed. We've been speaking with Brandy Gabbard, council member in St. Pete, running to be the next mayor of the city. Councilwoman Gabbard, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, the legislative session is over, but lawmakers are supposed to come back next week to talk about redistricting in a special session. Will it happen? Will it get postponed? Find out next, and what that could mean next time you go to the ballot box. Florida Matters Live and Local continues in a moment. Do stay with us.
On the next Fresh Air, we speak with actor Amanda Peet. She starred in The Whole Nine Yards, Something's Gotta Give, and Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Her series, Your Friends and Neighbors, just started its second season, and her new film is called Fantasy Life. Peet's also a writer. In a recent piece in The New Yorker, she writes about being diagnosed with breast cancer while both of her parents were near death. Join us.
Great conversation on Fresh Air tonight at 7 on WUSF.
When you support senior friendship centers during the Giving Challenge, April 15th and 16th, it powers joy, music, meals, friendship, and connection for local seniors from Sarasota and DeSoto to Lee counties. Learn more at friendshipcenters.org.
I'm WUSF's Morning Edition host Craig Kopp, heard weekday mornings from 5 to 9. And you're listening to WUSF 89.7, your spot for local.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. The shape of Florida's political future could change. Governor Ron DeSantis is driving this rare mid-decade push to redraw congressional districts in the Sunshine State, something that usually only happens once every 10 years after a census.
Florida has experienced 10 years worth of population growth in like 3. And so if you look, our districts are not fairly apportioned.
Well, the state legislature is set to have a special session for redistricting next week, but now legal questions might hold up this Republican-led effort. In the end, this could all affect who represents Florida in Congress. Do you think politicians should be able to redraw districts mid-decade, or should those maps remain until the next census? You can give us a call by calling 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Join the conversation there. You can also email us at FloridaMatters@WSF.org or drop us a message on our YouTube stream. Well, joining us to break it all down, what's driving the push, how unusual this is, what it could mean for Florida voters, is Jason Garcia. He's the journalist behind the Seeking Rents Substack newsletter. Jason, thanks so much for stopping by.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Matthew.
All right, so let's start with the basics. What exactly is being proposed for the special session?
Well, that is still up in the air in the sense that what they're proposing is redrawing the state's congressional maps, re-gerrymandering them again to make them even more sort of lopsided in favor of Republicans, except no actual maps have been produced yet, and it's becoming increasingly unclear if or when they are actually going to do this.
So the special session itself, would they use that for redrawing the maps, or are they just going to be talking about it?
No, that would be when, if they redraw the maps, they have to meet in a session and do that. The congressional maps would have to be passed by the legislature and signed by the governor.
And typically what happens is they've done their homework before, because these things, you can't just kind of get up there with a Sharpie and a whiteboard and do it on the fly, right? You've got to sort of know what you're doing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we have seen past, typically these happen once a decade, and we've seen, redistrictings in the past where, they've done statewide tours where they've gone to communities where they are redrawing maps. They've taken a lot of public input. They have, held hearings to hear from people whose communities want to be tied together in the same districts and to hear where it makes sense to draw these kinds of lines. In this case, if they go ahead and do it, it looks like they're just going to spring these maps at the last second and then vote them out immediately.
And how unusual is that?
That's incredibly unusual. Although the last round of redistricting we had after the 2020 census, we did get a situation where the legislature initially passed some congressional maps. The governor vetoed them in part because he did not think they were sufficiently They did not sufficiently advantage Republicans, and the legislature essentially at that point just abdicated its responsibility and allowed the governor to draw the maps. So the governor produced these maps, and that's what passed. Mm-hmm. So we do have some precedent now for politicians in Tallahassee essentially ignoring all public input when it comes to this process, but it is still relatively unusual.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Jason Garcia of Seeking Rents, and we're talking about the plan to redraw Florida's congressional maps. It's a slightly unusual plan in that it would be a mid-decade redistricting. Wouldn't be happening after the typical 10-year census. I want to hear from you. If politicians can redraw district lines whenever they want, do you think your vote counts the same? Do you feel like your vote has been protected or played with? You can give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So do you get the sense, Jason, that the legislature is waiting on Governor DeSantis to kick things off with his administration's own suggested map to start with? Like, are you hearing anything about whether that map is kind of being drawn up somewhere?
We haven't heard whether or not the maps, we haven't gotten any sort of official word or confirmation that these maps exist. I think it's probably safe to assume that they do have maps ready to go. What seems to be the drawback right now is there's a lot of debate about whether or not doing a new, more aggressive gerrymandering would be advantageous to Republicans or could actually hurt Republicans given the national climate. And what I mean by that is we just had a couple of special elections in Florida that Democrats won a couple of legislative seats because it is looking increasingly like this will be a wave year for Democrats. And so in one of these seats, this is actually the state house seat that represents Mar-a-Lago, the Democratic candidate won that seat that had previously been won by the Republican by 19 points. And so if you're looking at a swing of that size, it becomes really risky to sort of spread your margin even thinner among districts. So like the way redistricting or gerrymandering works is you essentially, if you're the party in power, if you're Republicans in Florida, you essentially try to create as many kind of 60-40 Republican districts as possible and then lump all the Democrats into a handful of 90-10 Democratic districts. The challenge is if Democrats are going to outperform by, 20 points this year, a bunch of seats that you drew for Republicans could suddenly be captured by Democrats.
Right. Is there also the sense from some of the folks who have, they're representatives now that even if they're not in a district that's been redrawn radically, their seat could be in jeopardy just because of that swing in those couple special elections you mentioned?
Yeah, in fact, some of the most intense pushback to the idea of doing mid-decade redistricting is coming from congressional incumbents, Republican incumbents. Dan Webster, Greg Steube have both been particularly outspoken about this. And again, they're looking at this as they need as strong as partisan a district as possible to sort of withstand this kind of wave that they don't want to. And redistricting is one of those things you can't really change one or two districts without changing a whole bunch of others, right? It's all one big balloon. You squeeze here, something happens over there, right? You've got to make it all fit. And to make even more aggressively, more Republican-friendly seats, you're going to have to take away some of the Republican advantage in these other districts. And so what you are seeing is a bunch of Republican incumbents in Congress right now do not want to do that.
We're talking with Jason Garcia about redistricting. If you want to weigh in, you've got questions perhaps about the potential for this redistricting special session, what it could mean for your vote, give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So, Jason, is it just that the special election that we had, Emily Gregory, as you mentioned, and the other special election that happened, is that what's really kind of gumming up the works here? Or did you get the sense that things were full steam ahead for the special session until that special election?
No, I don't think it was full steam ahead. I think there has been a growing awareness as we've seen special elections play out across the country that redistricting, that doing a sort of mid-decade round of fresh gerrymandering has not necessarily worked out the way that the Trump administration really anticipated when it sort of set this process in motion, beginning with the state of Texas. And that's in part just because we have seen this kind of growing backlash in special elections around the country where, again, Democratic candidates are dramatically outperforming the margins they were getting in 2024 when Trump won election as president. So I think the momentum had already kind of really stalled out to begin with, and then seeing those two elections in Florida, which also included Brian Nathan winning the Democratic candidate, winning the state Senate seat that had been held by the Ron DeSantis as the lieutenant governor now.
That was a pretty narrow win too, wasn't it? Just a couple hundred votes in there, I think.
That was, I believe, if memory serves, that was a 400 or 200 vote margin. But the important thing to remember is that was a race where the candidate didn't have much outside help, right? That was a candidate who essentially did that himself without help from the state party in a race where Republicans outspent them enormously. They ran Josie Tomko, a state representative who is widely seen for a long time as like an up-and-coming Republican figure, right? Like by all rights should have steamrolled in that race. And so I do think those results kind of like really froze things. And of course, it's impossible to sort of just untangle this from the sort of the poor interpersonal dynamics among Republican leaders in Tallahassee right now with each other. We've got a House Speaker and a Senate President that, it sounds like, aren't really even talking to each other. We've got a House Speaker and the governor who've been at war with each other for more than a year. So that dynamic and with the backdrop of also having to negotiate a state budget around all of this, just complicates things even more.
Yeah. Let's get some calls in here. We've got Kit calling in from St. Pete. Kit, you're on the air.
Thank you so much. I want to say that I'm in my mid-70s. I started voting in 1972. I'm an independent voter, and I have been for a long time. I've voted for Republicans. I've voted for Democrats. And gerrymandering, to me, is the root of all evil. I think it's anti-democratic. I think both sides have done it in states across the nation. The first sign, to me, of the deterioration of the Supreme Court's wisdom on these issues was when they okayed gerrymandering because, of course, the Constitution gives that right to the legislatures, which then puts them in charge of extending their own political careers forever at all costs. And Florida, when I moved here about 10 or 12 years ago, it was very much a 50-50 state. Elections at the governor's level, for example, were decided by 1 percentage point. And so to me, this is a really critical topic. I really appreciate your covering it. And across the nation, we've got to do something about it. I know I'm from a huge family, and with all kinds of political views, everybody agrees gerrymandering is like evil.
Kit, thank you for your call. Let me get a call in here as well from Kelly. Kelly, you're on the air. What are you thinking?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I agree with the last caller that I don't think it's evil. I would use that word, but it's cheating, and I know both sides have done it. I don't understand why, if we're not going to get rid of the Electoral College, which would settle the whole problem, we can't just use districts that already exist. I mean, there are school zones. Your trash collector has a certain area that they collect trash from. I don't understand why we can create these districts that a little bubble over here, a little bubble over there, a little bubble over there. And your guest actually said it out loud. Governor DeSantis rejected the last maps because they didn't favor Republicans. It's like they're not even trying to hide the fact that they're cheating. And I don't understand why we can't just simplify it by, where you live is what matters. Again, you asked the question, do I feel represented? Absolutely not. When I moved to Florida, it was a purple state. But since the 2000 election, forget it.
Kelly, thanks for your call. All right, so a couple of views from our listeners there, Jason. We've got about 2 minutes left here, but I mean, first of all, purple state's now pretty red, so there's that. But then the question from Kelly, why does this process happen the way it does? Isn't there a more logical way to do it? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, part of it is the Supreme Court has sort of said this is entirely a political process that states can sort of consider partisan reasons for doing this sort of stuff. And I will say, just to add to the points of the college, I would suggest to you that there are kind of two big structural problems. Gerrymandering is absolutely one of them. The other is the amount of money in politics. We've developed a campaign finance system in Florida, for instance, where it is now routine for the House Speaker or the Senate President to take $100,000 check from Publix or Disney or Florida Power and Light. And so that level of money is also a really big structural problem.
Yeah, a lot of money in local elections too. Right. Those price tags are getting higher and higher.
That's right. The campaign finance laws that we have on the books have become sort of like essentially optional at this point. But I do want to make the point of, you can really see what sort of impact partisan gerrymandering has when you create a system where the vast majority of legislators never have to worry about a competitive general election. And you can see it in that in Florida, we just had a constitutional amendment on the ballot that would have essentially enshrined abortion rights into the state constitution. That amendment passed it didn't pass, but it got 57% of the vote. It didn't pass because in Florida, constitutional
3% shy, yeah.
6%. Yeah, it got 57% support. And yet in a state where 57% of the voters voted to put abortion rights into the state constitution, we have a state legislature that has passed one of the strictest abortion bans in the country. That is the disconnect you get between sort of the median legislator you have serving who's shielded in one of these uncompetitive gerrymandered districts versus the actual population they are ostensibly serving when you create this situation where nobody has to worry about a competitive general election.
We're going to have to leave the conversation there, but we'll be watching to see what happens next week. Jason Garcia, reporter behind the Seeking Rents newsletter. You can find it on Substack. Thank you so much for breaking this all down for us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matthew.
Well, coming up next, after a close call on Florida train tracks in Sumter County, communities are wondering how to make school buses safer. You're listening to Florida Matters live and local. More to come in a moment.
I'm Robin Young. Best-selling author Rainbow Rowell's new novel Cherry Baby centers around Cherry, an overweight woman navigating life and love in a world with GLP-1 weight loss drugs.
One of the reasons I wanted to write this book wasn't to write about the drugs necessarily, but to write about a person just living a life where all of the rules have changed.
Next time, Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
Hey, it's Matthew Petty here, host of Florida Matters, live and local. We could use your help with some upcoming shows. If there's something you've always wondered about Tampa Bay, or a story you think needs to be told, let us know. It could be a unique job someone's doing, or a person whose contributions to the community are worth celebrating. Share your comments and questions. Here's how. Call 813-755-6562 and leave a message, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org.
No matter the situation, SPCA Tampa Bay can help. Every animal, every story, every family. You belong at SPCA Tampa Bay, a key part of this community for over 80 years. Learn more at spcatampabay.org.
This is WUSF, your spot for local videos. You can see them on YouTube. Just search for WUSF.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, Florida is only one of 8 states in the country that requires seatbelts to be installed on school buses. Despite that, they rank second in school bus-related fatal accidents. And on April 2nd, a bus driver in Sumter County drove a busload of 29 students across train tracks. As a train approached, the bus driver has been since arrested and charged by the Sumter County Sheriff's Office.
We've charged her with 29 counts of child neglect and 1 count of endangering an adult, placing them in harm's way. Trains don't sneak up on people, folks. It was poor judgment, and that's what led to this arrest.
Well, that was Sheriff Pat Breeden there. Now, many incidents like this can be prevented by following safety guidelines from the Florida Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. We'll talk about that in a bit. But here to talk now about how to ensure the safety of children in Florida, including on school buses, is Petra Stanton, who leads Safe Kids Florida Suncoast. Petra, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And if you've got questions, you want to maybe weigh in on this conversation, thinking about your own kids and their safety on school buses, 813-755-6562 is the number. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So, Petra, just for a bit of context, explain what Safe Kids Suncoast does and how does kind of school bus safety fit into that?
So we are a coalition of community partners led by Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, and we focus on all aspects of prevention of unintentional injuries for children between 0 to 19. So as you can imagine, it includes motor vehicle crashes, it includes bicycle pedestrian safety, and school buses are a big part of that.
Now, I know this is not something that you can comment on the specifics of necessarily, but just that near miss in Sumter County with the school bus and the train is probably every parent's worst nightmare if they're putting their kid on a school bus in the morning. What questions does it raise for you?
So first, I would like to say that I really feel a huge compassion for those families and their children. That must have been very, very scary for them. But the questions or maybe even answers or things that I think about is that according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, children are 70 times safer on a school bus than they are in a passenger vehicle, and they calculate this by the vehicle miles driven versus the fatalities that occur on these vehicles. So part of the reason that school buses are so much safer than personal vehicle is the obvious thing. They're big and yellow. They have flashing lights when they are stopping. They have stop sign for children exiting and entering the vehicle. They have designated bus stops, and so on. And furthermore, once the children are on the bus, they employ something called compartmentalization. So compartmentalization is that the vehicle seats are built in such way that they protect children. And we used to say it's almost like an egg carton. You can like tilt it, but the eggs still stay where they are supposed to stay. And the newer school buses now have seatbelts. And I would encourage families to, despite compartmentalization, to always encourage their child to wear a seatbelt. Now, I always think about children with special healthcare needs that might be on school buses and in situations and are not able to travel the way children typically travel.
Sure.
And that I would work with the school system to develop a safe travel plan for that child.
So, okay, so let me just ask about that compartmentalization in a little more detail. So it sounds to me that these school bus seats are more sophisticated than I might have imagined, because I think of school buses as being quite sort of simple looking vehicles, and granted, it's been a while since I've been on a school bus, but it sounds like those seats are more akin to something you might see in a race car or something that's going to give you a bit of added layer of protection compared to just a standard old seat.
So I don't know that I would compare it to a race car, just because when we are dealing with speeds, race cars are developed to withstand center and crash forces and speed. And school buses are never expected to go as fast as a race car ever would, right? So the compartmentalization is more, the seats are kind of padded and taller, so they put the children in the spot. And of course, every child on the school bus should have a designated spot. So, I encourage my daughter, no more than the passengers, like the 2 passengers, if there are 2 seating positions, and so on.
Right. So don't pack too many kids onto a seat. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, the kids are kids and they will be kids, but we have to educate them on how to behave properly in their environments, right? And safely.
It sounds like, though, if you're a parent putting your kid on a school bus in the morning, what you've been saying about the stats showing the safety of, school buses versus other vehicles, that's actually quite reassuring, right? Because, I think any parent sending their kid off to school, no matter how they're getting there, there's always that little kind of anxiety in the back of your mind. I want to make sure they get to school and get home safely, right? So school buses, as you're saying, actually a pretty safe option.
I would say so. And I'm not saying that just because I know, but there has been some research done by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and 70 times safer. That's a large number, right? So one of the things, though, that we have to think about in those situations is also how children are getting on and off of the bus. So I chose public transportation or school transportation for my child just because I knew the stats for most of her student life. And what I really know, though, that most children are at the biggest risk when they are trying to wait for the bus, enter the bus, and exit the bus, right? So one of the things that I would like to share with families and parents is make sure that you know where your bus stop is. So for example, if there is poor lighting, give children reflectors so the cars can see them. Teach them not to sit on the curbside. And we had a situation at our bus stop where the bus was coming from the south, but the bus stop itself was on the north side.
So they'd have to cross the street to get to the bus stop.
Exactly. They had to cross the street. So we designated a parent to look out for vehicles just in case drivers didn't stop or distracted, didn't see the children. Just hesitate a little bit, look out for those drivers, wait for the stop sign to be fully out, and then cross that road. Yeah.
What is the kind of thought process that goes into where a bus stops, though? Because sometimes I see a school bus stopping, I'm like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. They're kind of stopping in a place where there could be a spot a few hundred yards further up the road which might be a bit safer. Like, what's the thought process there, and what are some of the risks as to where exactly a bus is going to stop to pick up kids?
So I would say that would be the question for school bus transportation specialists. Because we rely on them to make those decisions. But as a parent or a caregiver, I would, if you have to walk to the school bus, I would look for the road rules for your walk, or etc. The things that you can control in your environment. And that might be a good topic for your next show, to see how these bus stops are decided. But we have helped central school districts to provide reflectors just so so the kids can be seen at the bus stop.
We're talking about school bus safety with Petra Stanton, who leads Safe Kids Florida Suncoast. If you've got a question about school bus safety, you can give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Let me just go back to some of those guidelines from the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. So a few things there for drivers mostly. It's pay attention to the lower speed limit in school zones, obey those limits, watch out for and obey signals from school crossing guards, and only drive or park in authorized areas to drop off or pick up children at school. So, Petra, I guess that kind of comes back to another X factor, and that is the behavior of the drivers, whether they're driving to and from a bus stop to pick up a kid or drop them off, or just passing a school bus. So what are some of the messages that you like to try and reinforce to make sure drivers are behaving themselves around school bus zones?
So I would urge all drivers in Florida and beyond to be mindful that children might be entering or exiting school bus. So as soon as those flashing lights start going on, slow down, be on a lookout for that school bus and the potential stop there, simply because the children may not look out for you. Children are there potentially some young children that may be exiting and entering that bus that may not be able to determine all of those safety rules of the road, and they see their parent or caregiver and they may just run towards them because we know that they are unable to perceive all situations because of their age and so on. So also stay off your cell phone. I mean, distracted
that's
driving.
a critical one, right? Yes, get off your phone.
It has become a large thing and large part of our society, but definitely not in a school zone. If you know there is a known bus stop, do not risk it ever, because it could cost someone's life. And that is something we are trying to prevent always.
No doubt. Well, we're going to leave the conversation there, but I want to thank you so much, Petra Stanton, who leads Safe Kids Florida Suncoast, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Well, coming up next time on Florida Matters Live and Local, Earth Day is around the corner. How do you think about sustainability when you shop, when you travel, when you go about your day-to-day? Maybe you're a thrift store junkie, I should say. Leave a voicemail. Let us know how you think about Earth Day and sustainability. The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email us anytime, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Florida Matters Live and Local executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producers are Amelie Horace and Quincy Walters. Engineers Jackson Harp, Gio Garvin, and Blake Bass. Jackson composed our theme music, and Chandler Balcom handled our video today. You can subscribe to Florida Matters wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch on WUSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll speak to you again tomorrow.